Good morning, everyone. First of all, thank you for joining us today. It's a great pleasure to welcome such a diverse audience of professionals, quality managers, environmental specialists, auditors, business decision makers, who all share one common objectives: building resilient, future-ready organizations. My name is Olga Zagorui, and I'm lead auditor for ISO standards. And I have been working as auditor and subject matter expert around 15 years. That it's my pleasure to give you some insights on the ISO revisions today. Today's session is focused on one of the most important developments currently shaping management systems worldwide, the upcoming revisions of ISO 9001 and ISO 14001. Uh, Over the next 40 minutes, we will explore why ISO standards evolve, what changes are expected in both ISO 14001 and ISO 9001, how these revisions reflect broader global business trends, what organizations should already start preparing for today, and most importantly, how companies can transform these revisions into a strategic advantage rather than seeing them simply as another compliance exercise. So the reality is that management systems are no longer only about certification. They are really increasingly becoming a reflection of organizational maturity, leadership capability, resilience, sustainability, digital readiness, and stakeholder trust. The organizations that prepare early for these changes will not only experience smoother transitions, that's for sure, but they will also strengthen operational performance, improve governance, enhance customer confidence, and also position themselves more competitively in the market. So let's us begin. Let me start from a quick recap of ISO standards because before discussing the revisions themselves, it is important maybe to briefly revisit the role of ISO standards play in modern organizations. Here on the slide, you can see the most popular ISO standards for now. Uh, if we speak about ISO 9001, there are around 1 million certifications worldwide, while ISO 14001 takes 300,000 certifications. These standards will be subject of revision this year, so we are mostly interested in them. Standards such as ISO 45001, ISO 50001, and other like ISO 27001 now are also very global standards, and let's say all of them became internationally recognized frameworks that support risk management, continual improvement, operational excellence. And for many organizations, these standards are no longer optional. One of the most and major strengths of the modern ISO standards is that so-called harmonized structure. All the standards are linked by this harmonized structure. And what is the harmonized structure itself? This is the structure which provides the common framework across the management system standards. That means that organizations implementing multiple standards can integrate them more efficiently because the core clauses follow the same structure. Here is the core structure on the slide, which has context of the organization, leadership, planning, support, operation, performance evaluation, and improvement in it. This alignment has significantly simplified integrated management systems. Organizations today are not managing quality separately from environmental impact, cybersecurity, or occupational safety, or anything else. Instead, these businesses increasingly operate through interconnected system. And this is exactly why the upcoming revisions matter so much. The revisions are not only isolated technical edits. because they represent an evolution of how organizations are expected to operate in a rapidly changing global environment. Let then jump to the question, why even do ISO standards undergo revisions? This is the question we often receive from clients, and the answer is quite straightforward. Businesses, environments evolve, technology evolves, risks evolve, stakeholder expectations also evolve, and standards must evolve as well. If standards remained unchanged for decades, they would eventually become disconnected from these modern operational realities. And the revisions of ISO 9001 and ISO 14001 are largely driven by several global developments. Organizations today operate in environments shaped by digitalization, automation, remote work, cloud systems, AI-supported processes, and this is rapidly changing communication models and technologies. The revised standards acknowledge this shift, and they place stronger emphasis on flexibility, accessible documented information, organizational knowledge management, and also adaptability to the modern technologies. Also, we have climate change, which is another major driver of the revisions. Sustainability is no longer viewed as a separate corporate initiative. Now it's becoming a core business issue. Customers, regulators, investors, and other global markets increasingly expect organizations to understand environmental risks as well as climate impacts. And this is one of the reasons climate considerations are becoming more explicitly embedded into management systems. The last several years demonstrated us how quickly disruptions can impact organizations. Because of global crises, supply chain instability, geopolitical uncertainty, modern ISO standards therefore focus more strongly on proactive planning than just reactive, change management, organization adaptability, and what is also important, strategical thinking. Organizations today are expected to demonstrate not only compliance, but also accountability. This is the standard revision timeline, which show us how the standards always undergo the revision. ISO considers standard revisions every 5 years. And after the consideration of the need of the change, ISO committee decides to confirm standard unchanged, revise it or amend, or even withdraw if it does not reflect the reality anymore. Standard revision steps include committee draft, which is the very first step in the standard revision, then draft international standard, and after that, the final draft international standard, which is actually the last step before acceptance the standard and publication of the new edition. Normally, the standard revision can prolong 3 or 4 years from initial review to publication. And after standard is published, transition period is established. It is typically from 2 to 3 years, depending on the significance of changes. General changes in revised ISO 14001 and ISO 9001 are based on the climate change integration, life cycle perspective, compliance for environmental management systems. New revisions also highlight strategical alignment generally, increases customer focus and adaptability to modern work practices. General standard revisions are close to harmonization, And it really supports the harmonization with harmonized structure. Also, we can see the revised terminology, more flexible documentation practices for both standards, and editorial changes in line with the continual improvement. So that's, in a nutshell, what should we expect for revisions of ISO 9001 and ISO 14001. And let's just move into ISO 14001 and see what happens there. Here you can see ISO 14001 standard revision timeline. And as you already aware, ISO 14001 standard was published on 15th of April 2026. That actually means that the final deadline of the transition to the new version of the standards will be in April 2029. As the transition period given to the organizations and other stakeholders to transfer to the new version is 3 years. That's official information. Please be aware that in October 2027, initial certification against the old version ISO 14001-2015 is not possible anymore, and starting from October 2027 all the new certifications must be conducted against new version ISO 14001-2026. For those organizations who are already certified and will do their transition within recertification audit or surveillance audit, transition deadline is still April 2029. Actually, the upcoming is the ISO 14001 revision, which is already there, represents one of the most strategically important environmental management updates in recent year. Why? Actually, the direction is very clear. Environmental management systems are evolving from operational environmental control tools into broader, more strategic sustainability frameworks. Organizations will be expected not only to manage environmental impacts, but also to demonstrate environmental awareness throughout decision-making process. And let's then see close by close what had been changed in the new revision. First of all, let's see the clause 3, terms and definitions. This is the one of the first visible changes in the standard. This is the expansion and clarification of terminology. This may sound maybe minor at the first glance, but terminology plays a very important role in the standards. When terminology is unclear, organizations interpret requirements differently, and that may create inconsistency. The revised version of ISO 14001 introduces more in-text definitions, some updated terminology, and also clearer interpretation guidance represented in the Annex A. The term interested party, for example, becomes now the preferred terminology, while the term stakeholder is acknowledged as an admitted term. There are some terms introduced as policy and environmental policy, and then it is possible to see the difference between them. There are some links to the official terminology databases, like ISO online browsing platform and IEC Electropedia. For organization, that means that documentation reviews, procedure updates, and awareness training are needed, right? If you speak about clause 4, organizational context, this is the one of the most significant changes in the standard. Climate change is now explicitly addressed within organizational context analysis, so no addendum anymore. Organizations will be expected to evaluate whether climate-related factors are relevant to their EMS. This might include consideration of resource availability, pollution levels, biodiversity, ecosystem health, climate risks, environmental conditions, as proposed by standard node. What is important here is that organizations are no longer expected to look only internally. The revised standards strengthens external environmental awareness. And this actually can be addressed by answering following questions. How could climate events impact operations? How could changing regulations affect the business? How do local communities perceive environmental performance of our organization? Are investors concerned about climate-related risks? Are supply chains exposed to environmental instability or not? Yeah, so this represents for us a strategic shift. Environmental management become increasingly connected to business continuity and long-term organizational resilience. Organizations that already integrate ESG thinking, sustainability programs, UN sustainability goals, and climate considerations into business planning will likely adapt more easily. Other organizations may need to significantly strengthen contextual analysis processes. If we speak about the clause 4.3, which is about scope, here we can see another important enhancement concerns life cycle perspective. As you can see on the slide, organization must now more clearly consider their authority and ability to influence environmental impacts across the life cycle. This means that organizations should evaluate upstream supply chains, externally provided services, transportation, product use, disposal, and end-of-life treatment. So all the actions across the entire life cycle of activities, products, and services, as stated in the requirements of the standard. The intention of that is to prevent organizations from artificially limiting EMS scope in ways that exclude significant environmental impacts. So that this is especially relevant for manufacturing, logistics, food production, energy sectors, construction, and some other organizations with complex supply networks. We increasingly see customers and regulators expecting transparency beyond direct operation. If we speak about the clause 5, which is leadership, leadership requirements are becoming more strategic. The revised environmental policy guidance now references among sustainable resource use, climate mitigation, climate adaptation, biodiversity protection, and ecosystem preservation. Also consideration of natural resources, yeah, as one of the example of what the company need to consider in the environmental policy. That's important to highlight that standard does not force identical commitments on every organization. Instead, these organizations are expected to align their environmental commitments with their actual contexts and risks. So there is a clear linkage to the clause 4.1, organizational context, and the clause 5, leadership. This is the very important principle, actually. Because ISO standards, as you know, are not intended to create identical systems. They are intended to create context-driven systems. And leadership involvement, therefore, becomes increasingly important for the organizations. If we speak about the clause 6, which is planning, this is one of the most operationally impactful updates in the standard. Here we have a dedicated clause introduced related to the risks and opportunities. Organizations will need to determine risks and opportunities based on the context, interested parties, scope, environmental aspects, compliance obligations, and importantly, documented information must support these determinations. This actually means that organization may need more structured risk methodologies or clearer environmental risk criteria, uh, together with the improved documentation. Additionally, the new planning of changes clause introduces stronger change management expectations. This is extremely relevant in modern operational environments. Organizations constantly change equipment, technologies, suppliers, materials, facilities, maybe even organizational structures. And the revised standard emphasized that these changes should not happen informally. Organization must evaluate potential environmental impacts before implementation of any change. This is particularly important because many environmental incidents occur during transitions, modifications, or operational changes which were poorly controlled. Strong change management really significantly improves system stability. Annex A to the ISO 14001 provides very interesting hints how to implement this new clause change in the planning, and provides a list of potential changes which may help organizations to allocate the changes that might happen in the organization. The clause 8 operation introduces new terminology. The term outsourced processes now is replaced by externally provided processes, products, and services. This actually reflects a bit broader supply chain realities, yeah, because organizations today often rely heavily on external providers, and outsourcing responsibility does not eliminate accountability. The revised standard emphasize proactive supplier and contractor management. Among the examples, a standard provides the control of externally provided processes, products, and services may include supplier evaluations, environmental requirements in purchasing documents, performance monitoring, audits of contractors, training of contractors, and other oversight activities that might be relevant. This is really highly aligned with current market expectations, right? Organizations are increasingly evaluated not only on direct environmental performance, but also on how responsibly they manage their supply chains, which may be quite complicated, right? If you speak about the clause 9, which is now monitoring, measurement, analysis, and evaluation. So you can see the name of clause had been changed. Monitoring and measurement expectations in this revision became more robust. Organization must evaluate environmental performance and the effectiveness of the EMS itself. It is not the new requirement, but now it's explicitly distinguished and really clearly stated. Actually, having procedures alone in the organization is not enough. Organization must demonstrate that the management systems is actually delivering intended outcomes, right? Internal audits are also becoming more objective driven. Audit objective must now be clearly defined before audits are conducted. That is why we have the new subclause in the clause 9.2.2 internal audit program, that before conducting the audit, organization shall consider the audit objectives together with criteria and scope for each audit. That actually encourages more meaningful audit focused on effectiveness, operational risks, strategic priorities, and other system performance indicators, right? So this is the very positive direction, actually. The clause 10 improvement, clause 9 management review emphasizes that there should be management review inputs considered by the management, and these inputs shall consider the needs and expectations of interested parties that are relevant to the EMS, together to the common inputs we already used to see in the standard, and also management review results. Now the standard explicitly requires documented results, not outputs anymore as it was in the previous version, and also decision on these management review results. Additionally, this clause 9.3 management review was restructured into 3 subclauses: general subclause, management review inputs, and then management review results. If you speak about the clause 10 improvement, the revised structure separates now corrective actions and nonconformities and continual improvement. So the clause was restructured and reorganized into 2 sub-clauses instead of 3. Let's say this separation is aimed to highlight the proactive concept of improvement, not only reactive, right? So organizations that are truly mature look for environmental innovations, resource optimization, process improvements, and some long-term sustainability enhancements. These are the key changes in ISO 14001 standard, and as we can see, they're quite interesting. We cannot say that they're totally significant, but anyways, some efforts are still needed to implement the changes, right? Now I propose you to jump into the expected updates of ISO 9001 and overview them. Here you can see ISO 9000 standard revision timeline. And for now, ISO 9001 revision is on the stage of this so-called draft international standard. If you remember, I told you that there are 3 main steps of standard revision, and this is the second step. So now we are between draft international standard and final draft international standard, which is expected to be very soon. We expect that the standard will be published in the end of the year, maybe even earlier, maybe even in September 2026, because this is now the publication target. And taking into account this date, we can expect that there will be 3-year transition as well, as for ISO 14001. And the deadline for transition will be somewhere in September 2029. As far as we now on this stage of revision, and there may be some additional changes introduced, I can tell you today what is expected to be changed in the standard, but please note that it might happen that some other changes will happen after publication. So let's overview the 9001 standard updates. As I said you in the beginning, ISO 9001 remains the world's most recognized quality management standard, and the upcoming revision reflects really major changes in how organizations manage quality culture, leadership, and operational flexibility. Actually, if you speak about the overall changes in the standard, the overall direction of ISO 9001 can be summarized in several words like strategic alignment, culture, adaptability, customer confidence, and organizational resilience. Very similar to ISO 14001, right? And one important update in the transformation of clause 3 is the more integrated glossary structure. Instead of relying heavily on external reference standards like ISO 9000, the revised version includes more core terminology directly within the standard. So here we have in-text glossary of approximately 20 essential terms. That's for now. Let's see what will be in the future when FDs will come. Actually, this change improves usability for standard users because users can more easily now understand concepts such as process, risk, documented information, top management, quality objectives, and some other. They may reduce interpretation inconsistencies and also improve accessibility for organizations implementing this standard for the first time. When we go to the clause 4, context of organization, climate change again becomes more visible here. We will not have an addendum anymore to ISO 9001. The climate change is now introduced into the standard body. Organizations must determine whether climate change is a relevant issue for the QMS. This is the very important development. For many years, quality management systems were viewed separately from sustainability topics, but in this reality, climate and environmental disruptions directly affect quality outcomes, right? So that's not only relevant for organizations implemented EMS. For example, in case of supply chain disruptions, transportation's instability due to global situation worldwide, some energy interruptions, regulatory changes, evolving customer expectations, can influence product conformity and service reliability. So that the revised standard recognizes the broader business reality and puts stronger emphasis on documented evidences. The wording in the standard moves from simply instructing organizations to act over expecting demonstrated evidences. This actually reflects growing expectations around transparency and accountability of the organizations who are operating in QMS. Now, documented information not only should be maintained, but also shall be available. And you can see this shift throughout the whole standard. Everywhere there is a highlight that documented information on this or that shall be available, which actually make this requirement broader, right? So, if you speak about the clause 5, leadership, this is the one of the most strategically important developments in ISO 9001. Why? Because top management will now be expected to promote quality culture and ethical behavior. This is extremely significant because quality is no longer viewed only as a procedures and controls. Organizations increasingly recognize that sustainable quality performance depends heavily on culture. What does strong quality culture means? Usually that's employees understand that's the situation when employees understand expectations. People feel responsible for any outcomes, especially quality outcomes. Communication is really strong and transparent. Any issues related to quality or to other aspects are raised openly, and also continual improvement becomes part of organizational usual behavior. Not only culture, but also ethics becomes increasingly relevant. Why? Because organizations today operate under greater scrutiny. Stakeholder expects from organization integrity, accountability, transparency, responsible decision making. So that's more pressure on the organizations. And this actually now is more closely with modern governance expectations. Organizations may therefore need to strengthen leadership communication. This is extremely important. To strengthen corporate values, awareness programs, behavioral expectations, whistleblowing systems, and also employee engagement activities. So that this leadership clause is really significant shift. Yeah. If you speak about the clause 6, this is the really most affected clause by changes. The revised version separates the actions to address risks and actions to address opportunities now. And this is really the very positive development, because traditional organizations focused more heavily on risk prevention, right, for bad situations. However, mature management systems should also identify opportunities, right, the positive direction. What can be considered as an opportunity? That might be, for example, automation, a higher level of automation, right? Customer experience improvements, some process optimizations, digitalizations, some innovations and know-hows, new service models, etc. Yeah, actually, if you go to the Annex A of the ISO 9001, you will see there more information and more hints on every clause. In a nutshell, the revised standard encourages organizations to actively evaluate opportunities that can improve customer satisfaction, which is the core aspect in ISO 9001. Of course, product conformity, operational performance, and strategic outcomes of the organization. These shifts actually show us how QMS, from being only defensive, become growth-oriented, yeah, which is really in line with the standard principle of continual improvement. If we speak about clause 7, which is support, we don't have there much changes, but here in this clause, the standard explicitly recognizes modern work arrangements. Yeah, we have quite a lot of changes in the work mode since COVID started, right? And standard developers decided to include that into the standard. So that infrastructure considerations of the clause 7 support now include on-site work, remote work, and hybrid work, which directly reflects the reality, right? This is the highly relevant to today's business environments worldwide. Together with that, organizations increasingly operate across distributed teams, remote operations, and digital collaboration platforms. Having that in mind, the standard acknowledges that quality management system must remain effective regardless of work location. Another major focus in this clause is the organizational knowledge. Knowledge management expectations now become much stronger. Organizations are expected not only to maintain knowledge, but also retain them, apply, and share. This is really important because many organizations now face with skill shortages, rapid technological change like AI, for example, right? Some retirement and of experienced employees, workforce turnover. So that's there is a very interesting term introduced into the standard, so-called tacit knowledge. That's personal know-how and experience. And according to the standard, it becomes really increasingly valuable. Organizations that fail to capture organizational knowledge often experience inconsistency, inefficiency and vulnerability in operational aspects. Yeah. So that awareness requirements are also stranded. Employees are expected to understand not only quality objectives, their contribution to the QMS, but also quality culture and ethical behavior as established in the Clause 5 leadership. So actually that's again reinforces the human side of management system, which is extremely important. These are all significant changes expected in the new revision of ISO 9001. And I can tell you what will remain unchanged so that you don't worry. Sometimes organizations become concerned that revisions mean complete system redesign. Here, for these revisions, that is not the case. The core management system principles remain intact. Harmonized structure remains. The fundamental clause framework, of course, remains. The process approach remains. Base thinking, together with continual improvement, the customer focus also remains. Leadership, accountability, environmental responsibility are the core aspects in the standard as always. So this is important because organizations will, with mature systems, already possess strong foundations for these revisions. Yeah, and the most organizations will not need to rebuild systems from zero. And just instead of that, the transition will primarily involve strengthening existing processes, improving evidence availability, as now it is really highlighted in the standard, refining risks and context analysis, integrating climate consideration, if not yet, yeah, enhancing leadership involvement, especially if you speak about behavior and ethics for QMS, which is quite brand new requirement. Also modernizing documentation and governance approaches. So that actually not a significant effort, but still effort. Organizations that already maintain active living and really mature mature management systems will generally adapt more smoothly than organizations relying heavily on static documentation and static approach. Yeah, so that one of the common questions we receive from our clients is, when should we start preparing? And the answer is really simple. You should start now. Yeah, even before final publication of ISO 9001 or when ISO 14001 just published, organization can begin preparing strategically. Waiting until the transition deadline often creates unnecessary pressure. Early preparation allows organizations to really train employees gradually, which is the most important part of this transition. Yeah, then allocate the budget resources appropriately, spread workload more efficiently, and then integrate changes into normal operational planning. Let's then discuss several practical preparation areas. First of all, that would be very important that organizations should review terminology and documentation. That might include procedures, policies, manuals, risk registers, audit programs, supplier control approaches, forms, etc. The focus should not be excessive bureaucracy. In fact, the revised standards support more flexible approach to documentation management. The key question here will be, can the organization demonstrate effective implementation and evidence availability? So digital documentation systems will likely become increasingly important here. What is also important that organizations should reassess internal issues, external issues, stakeholders' expectations, climate relevant, environmental conditions of organizations, some strategical business risks and opportunities. And actually, this analysis should not be some one-time exercise, but it should evolve into some ongoing strategic management process and became a routine. If you speak about leadership involvement, the leadership will become more visible during audits, and leadership communication also become increasingly important. Employees should clearly understand organizational priorities and expectations to be in line with them. Yeah. Together with that, organizations should evaluate whether their current approaches are sufficiently structured. Questions to consider when improving risk and opportunity methodologies may be the following. Are risks consistently evaluated? Are opportunities formally identified? Are climate risks considered in our organization? Do we assess changes properly before implementation? Are any evidence on that available? And let's say, having this in mind, just to evaluate whether their current approaches are sufficiently structured. If you speak about supplier management, you may saw that supplier management expectations continually increasing, and supply chain resilience is becoming a major business priority globally, so that it's very important for organizations to review supplier qualification, contractor controls, remote service management, outsourced process monitoring, environmental oversight for EMS, yeah, and not only for EMS. Actually, these are the main steps to prepare for the revisions. And now I would like to conclude with perhaps the most important message of today's session. I would recommend that organizations should avoid viewing these revisions of standards simply as compliance updates. Yes, certification transition will eventually be required, but the bigger opportunity is strategic. The revised standards encourage organizations to become more resilient, more adaptive, more transparent, more knowledge-driven, and more strategically aligned. The organization that approach the transition proactively will likely experience benefits far beyond certification. These benefits actually are including better stakeholder trust, enhanced customer confidence in your performance, improvement environmental performance, stronger risk management, increased market credibility, improved governance of the organization. So stakeholders increasingly evaluate how mature, credible, and effectively implemented management systems actually are. The revisions create a valuable opportunity for organizations to really reassess what is working well, where gap exists, what can be modernized, how management system can better support long-term business objectives of organizations. And actually, as we close today's session, I would like to leave you with several final thoughts. First, the revisions of ISO 9001 and ISO 14001 reflect broader global business evolution. So that the management system of the future is more integrated, more strategic, more sustainability focused, and aligned with the global thinking, and more people-centered. And it will be only evolving. Second, the organizations that prepare early will have a significant advantage. Preparation does not mean rushing into unnecessary changes. It just means understanding the main direction, evaluating current maturity of the management system, and then strengthening the system gradually, not at once. And also, of course, what is the most important thing is to align management system with business strategy. And finally, management systems should never be viewed purely as audit tools. At their best, they are business management tools. They help organizations to improve, to manage uncertainty, to strengthen trust, and really achieve sustainable success. On this positive note, I would like to thank you very much for your attention today, and we truly appreciate your participation and interest to these upcoming developments. If you would like support with any further information, you can access our website and contact us, and our team would be very pleased to support you. Thank you very much again, and we look forward to continuing the conversation with you.